In the latest edition of Mental Health Matters, our podcast produced with the National Alliance on Mental Illness Southern Oregon chapter, Andra Hollenbeck of NAMI SO speaks with Kelly Birch of Rogue Valley Integrative Therapy about different approaches to treatment, including some thoughts on the mind-body connection and how it can impact our mental health. Good day. Hope you're all doing well today. You're listening to Mental Health Matters on the Jefferson Exchange with Jefferson Public Radio and NAMI Southern Oregon. I'm Andra Hollenbeck with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Southern Oregon. When we talk about health, we can't talk about complete health without talking about our mental health. On this program, we highlight mental health issues in our community and ways we can improve mental health for everyone. Today, we'll be discussing with Kelly Birch, licensed professional counselor, author, mindfulness coach, certified yoga therapist, and adjunct psychology professor, the connection between our bodies and our minds and how this connection can impact recovery and living with mental health conditions. Good morning, Kelly. Welcome.
Thank you, Andra. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
You're currently a mental health provider, so go ahead and tell us a little bit about your current work and your background.
Mostly mindfulness, meditation, and yoga. And after working in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area in science for several years while teaching yoga, I moved to Ashland and I became a licensed professional counselor. I did my master's here at SOU, actually. Currently, I'm in private practice in Ashland that integrates both contemplative practices and psychotherapy. I've completed a variety of trainings in mindfulness and psychotherapy, as well as yoga therapy. And I also teach undergraduate courses on foundations of mindfulness and health psychology. Oh, and I am originally from England. Sometimes people want to know where my accent's from.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we hear a lot about the connection between our mind and our bodies. And then we also hear about this integrative approach to mental illness. So maybe you could kind of explain to us the connection about what is known as integrative approach to mental health and approaching mental illness?
The mind-body connection, I would say, is a concept that refers to the complex relationship between the mind and body, and it's kind of a broad definition. The idea that our thoughts, our feelings in our body, our emotions can powerfully impact both our mental and physical health. And the integrative approach to mental illness you can think of as a holistic approach that takes into account all aspects of a person's life, including their physical and mental health, and their social, emotional well-being, the cultural context we are embedded in our culture. Mm-hmm. And it aims to treat the whole person rather than just the symptoms of the illness. So while the two concepts are related, they're not exactly the same.
Yeah, it's a special thing about mental health conditions in that there's the biological aspect, the social aspect, and then the psychological aspect. So it sounds like this is an attempt to look at all of those aspects of mental health. So when you talk about mindfulness and mental health, can you elaborate on that a little bit? What is mindfulness when applied to mental health?
Yeah, sure. Well, the idea of integrating mind and body is that when they work together, we're able to make effective choices that make our lives more easeful. And when we're not really aware of what's going on and what's running us, then sometimes we behave in ways is like, oh, no, that's not really how I wanted to behave. And we can make ourselves suffer and those around us, and it doesn't go as well. But if we integrate a mindful approach, I'd say, for example, so mindfulness is about, quite simply, becoming aware of, well, what are thoughts? Thoughts are not emotion. Thoughts are, what did I have for lunch today? An emotion, obviously as emotions are how we feel, joy, happiness, sadness, and all those things. And thoughts can spark an emotion. Oh, I really enjoyed my breakfast, for example. That was so yummy. Or, oh no, why did I say that to that person? And that has an effect in the body, sometimes creates a stress response. It has an effect, it produces certain kinds of emotions. And getting a little bit more clear on what those are really allows us to get a sense of what's happening. Oh, I'm feeling my fists are clenched, my jaw is clenched, and I have this feeling in my chest, and I have these thoughts. Oh, I want to just, get rid of that person. And get it. And can I say just one more thing about that? Because I want to say some people, for example, may be very aware of their thoughts and thinking and a little bit living in their heads, but not so much aware of what's going on in the body.
Yeah.
I've had clients who sometimes like, oh, I just don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what my emotion is. I'm not feeling anything. Then others may be very in touch with their emotions, but not very aware of what they're thinking. So they might have big emotions, but not know what they're thinking or what's going on there. And for other people, they only know what they're thinking and feeling by observing their actions.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're trying to get sort of the mind and body to be more communicating with each other and a little bit more in sync with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the mindfulness is an approach to make that happen.
Because it is, how do we do that? What I've just said is quite simple. What's often not very simple is all the ways in which we're not able to be fully present, fully aware of everything. Part of the skill of using mindfulness, and mindfulness, by the way, being a kind of a state of being, a state of an orientation toward life of being present, and a training of attention, a slowing down a bit and observe in a friendly manner what's happening in our thoughts, emotions, and all the rest of it. And so, for example, something that comes to mind is from dialectical behavior therapy, which is a kind of cognitive behavior therapy and has a very large mindfulness component. There's a skill called the stop skill, and it helps to, say, lower distress a little if we're really upset. And it's basically stop, which is the S, take a step back, figuratively or literally, observe, what am I thinking, what are my thoughts, what are my emotions, what are my body sensations, not thinking about why. Just those things alone can kind of prevent us from making things worse and also give us a space to respond differently.
Sure. And the P?
Proceed mindfully.
Thank
you for reminding me of that.
Good. Well, I was on pins and needles there because that sounds like a great acronym to remember.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. Well, thank you. You're listening to Mental Health Matters on Jefferson Public Radio. I'm Andra Hollenbeck, and we're speaking with Kelly Birch of Rogue Valley Integrative Therapy. So let's delve a little bit more into that. What are some trends that you have noticed in the field of mental health recently in terms of integrative therapy and kind of what's going on?
Inclusion of mindfulness practice is no longer something that people view with suspicion, but as something that can be applied to most people in one form or another, right? It's very tailored to the individual. And this is often referred to as a third wave behavior therapies. So say second wave was, say, cognitive behavior therapy that focuses a little bit on trying to change thoughts, change behaviors. And that's sometimes, often really, really difficult. What's really helpful in this third wave of therapies is the understanding that we need to accept what is happening, to actually accept this is what's happening before we can change. And accept, by the way, doesn't mean like. You might not
just sort of acknowledge that it's there.
That it's there. This is what is happening. And this actually, to my way of thinking, brings us closer to a more humanistic and holistic approach to mental health. And developing a friendly and compassionate attitude toward oneself is part of this. It seems very counterintuitive. And yet research and clinical experience shows how effective and even fundamental this approach is to fostering well-being. Sometimes people speak of a fourth wave where the focus is even more on developing compassion and loving kindness and gratitude and spiritual connection as fundamental to a meaningful life. And what I really love about this personally is that this approach doesn't exclude anyone, whether a person is living with a mental illness or not. Their essential dignity and worth as a human being is recognized and valued.
Yes, and NAMI, we have a saying, we see the individual first and not the illness.
Yes,
and
exactly.
that's kind of what that's primarily about. If someone is having some symptoms of mental illness, what are the things that they should consider in seeking integrative approaches to therapy? Because there's the biological approach, which many, you go to a psychiatrist, they give you a pill. But if you're considering an integrative approach, we want to make sure that we're getting the kind of thing that's going to have good results. So what should we consider when we're contemplating integrative therapy?
Well, first of all, but it's important to find a provider who's qualified and experienced in integrative mental health care. And there are a number of different types of providers here in the Valley who offer integrative mental health care, including some psychiatrists, psychologists, nurse practitioners, social workers, and of course, counsellors. And if possible, find someone who has experience in treating the type of mental illness or mental health challenges that you're experiencing. And at least as important as all of those, someone with whom you can feel comfortable and you can develop a trusting and safe therapeutic alliance.
Yeah, that's right. All right. And are there particular concerns when it comes to an integrative approach to mental health treatment?
Well, yes, and actually I wanted to just add a little bit to the previous question that's relevant to this is be prepared to participate in your treatment, in a sense. Integrative mental health care.
Involved.
Yeah, because it's not a quick fix, and it often involves a combination, as you have said, of different types of treatments, such as psychotherapy, medication, and lifestyle changes, and it takes time and persistence and a commitment to sustain this kind of self-care. And I sometimes liken it to brushing our teeth. We may not always feel like doing it. And yet we do it because once we start, it kind of feels quite good. I like my minty fresh toothpaste. And we know that in the long term, it will help our teeth and gums to be healthier. And just like dental hygiene, we need to take care of our mental hygiene. And in terms of the concerns, I think my main one is I've been talking about integrative mental health care as being something where we want to invite the parts of ourselves that we may not know, we may not be conscious of. Well, we have to take a lot of care as providers and also as individuals to not do this too quickly. As a therapist, I've often been so impressed and moved by clients' stories that describe the coping mechanisms they developed as children under difficult and sometimes very traumatic circumstances. If no one's showing up to help them, a child might decide, well, I just better rely on myself then, which is wise and adaptive. Until people grow up and then find it difficult to connect with others and to ask for help.
Right.
If someone's bullied, I better make myself really small
Right.
or I'll be hurt, right? So defensives developed in childhood often have literally helped people to survive.
Right. So adaptations become maladaptive, and that's what one has to be kind of open to examining in a therapeutic approach.
It is, but the concern can be we don't want to just take away someone's defenses unless and until they've developed other resources, such as coping skills, such as what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's super important. Another thing in a similar vein is that everyone's heard of self-compassion and loving kindness towards self, and they might sound like a good thing. They're often really hard for people to feel, and if someone's been invalidated or criticized, stigmatized, whether it was intentional or otherwise by others, as you know, these messages get internalized so that the person fully believes they don't have inherent worth and dignity and don't deserve kindness. And sometimes it can be very painful, right? And it can be very painful even to receive kindness and compassion from others. So we just have to tread very carefully.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate this conversation. This is Andra Hollenbeck. We've been talking with Kelly Birch about the mind-body connection and mental health. You can find out more about NAMI Southern Oregon at our website, namisouthern.org. This is Mental Health Matters. Thanks for joining us. You can find this and other interviews at jeffexchange.org or subscribe to this podcast at Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.